We are Group 2, and our report is on Central and South American STEM prior to Christopher Columbus. I am speaking about the Incas, who were in Peru and South America. They created their capital in Cusco, and in the 12th century, they were extremely resourceful and intelligent people. They built pyramids, roads, irrigation, and they had traveling communication, rope bridges, ways to grow fruits and vegetables. It was amazing. They were in power for about 50 years. It came to an end in 1532 when Spain, some Spanish, their emperor was killed by the Spaniards in 1532, and their empire was no more in 1535. Their religion was like animism, and they worshiped like the sun and the moon and other various gods. One of the things that they did was they lived in the Andes, which is at 22,838 square feet above sea level. So it gets pretty cold there, and it's really hard to grow fruits and vegetables, but they found a method of doing that by creating terraces, and they built stone walls, and they filled them with rocks, gravel, sand, and then soil on top, where they planted fruits and vegetables, but primarily they planted corn, and then they planted potatoes and peas and squash. And the peas would grow up the corn stalks. At night, when the terrace had been warmed up by the sun all day, it would release the heat that had been absorbed, and it would keep the vegetables and fruits warm so that they wouldn't freeze. Another thing that they created was freeze drying. They would lay the fruits and vegetables out on the ground, cover them with a cloth overnight, and then when they woke up in the morning, they would walk on them to squeeze out all of the moisture. And they would do that for a few days, and it would freeze dry it, and it would be very lightweight, and they could travel around with it, which was pretty amazing. And it's still done today, as in like when you go hiking and things, you can bring freeze-dried food and MREs and these kind of things. So it's actually pretty amazing. They also built rope bridges. There's one still in existence, but they would use wool from llamas and alpacas, and they would use grass and vines and things, and they would twine those all together into long ropes and attach them to a rock, and then extend it across and attach another rope on the bottom, and they would put wood planks across and attach them in between. And it was pretty amazing that they could create such a way to transport themselves with these little pieces of grass. That to me is amazing. They also had roadways that were made of stone, and they had little stopping points where you could rest. Their roadways aren't as great as the Roman ones, but it's still pretty amazing. And off to you.
The Incas were also known for their jewelry. They discovered gold, silver, and copper while digging in their mines. And while doing so, they also discovered that they could melt down the gold, silver, and copper and make them into wearable objects. Now, the Incas thought that gold shone like the sun, and in order to honor their gods, they preferred to wear gold. The priests, the members of the royal family, people of the higher hierarchy would wear gold on a daily basis, and the more they wore, the richer they looked to the common person, and the higher social status they had. Now, women would also wear jewelry, but they would wear necklaces, bracelets, they would decorate their sandals, they would decorate their clothes, they would decorate it with jewels, anything that they could find to decorate and add a little bit more color to their jewelry. Now, members of the warriors that would go out to war or fight in battle, they would wear silver vests, silver masks, and the heavier the masks and vests, or the more jewelry they wore, the higher they were in the tribe and the higher status they had in the tribe. Now, this was all up until the Spanish conquerors came and looted all the jewelry from the Incas, which was then found and placed into museums, and we can still, until this day, go to the museums and see the jewelry that the Incas made back then. Now, on to you.
Hello, my name is Rebecca, and I will be talking about the Mayan astronomy. So, the Mayan civilization developed a writing system, and they also studied astronomy, math, and were very accurate on their calendar. They predicted the eclipse and other events. The astronomy that the Mayans had studied the moon, the planets, the sun, and the Milky Way. And they also looked up to the heavens for guidance. They used an observatory and devices to track motion of the sun.
Alright, the Maya were a collection of people clustered in city-states. What united them as an idea for the Maya, the world of ordinary living in the other world populated by gods. Ancestors and monstrous things were equally real. There existed the three regions. Together, the heavens, the earths, and the waters of the underworld. At places, the powers to influence the other world was concentrated. Here, the Maya built temples and mystic mountains or pyramids. Kings spilled their own blood, dragging stingray spines through their tongues to cement their relationship with the powers above. Captives were strapped to altars, their hearts torn from their breasts and offered up as sacrifices. Even their leisure activities had religious implications. In U-shaped arenas with sloping walls, the Mayan played ball. These two were religious riots. Moral show players wearing protective heads and waistbands, bouncing the ball with bodies and feet across the court. This was no mere sport, but ritualized battle. Losers stood to forfeit. Classic, and post-classic settles did not last long, but the other great Mayan cities soon flourished all across the Yucatan Peninsula for 700 years, from 900 to 200 BCE. A mighty civilization generated great art as well as the most brilliant architecture, astronomy, and mathematics the Americas had ever seen. Although there were different, all were united by common cultural traits. Sun worship, twin calendars of 260 days and 365 days, and ritual murder to the pantheon of bloody, thirsty gods, and all built their palaces and pyramids using the labor of their people. None had domestic animals or the use of the wheel. Time-obsessed the Mayans. They recorded the cycles of Venus, which repeats its wanderings across the heavens every 584 days. They measured the length of the solar year of 365 days. They called the Vangun year. Alongside ran their scared round of 260 days, 13 months of 20 days each. The solar year consisted of 18 of these months, totaling 360 days. The 5 remaining were considered times of extreme bad luck. And on to you.
Thank you. My name is Joshua Jones, and I will be talking about the Muisca people, who are an advanced pre-Columbian civilization based in Colombia. Through their access to the salt trade, they are able to acquire gold, which they use to create their famous artworks. Their goldsmithing is so famous that they are thought to be the source of the El Dorado myth, the city of gold. But unlike the monetary purposes of the Spanish, it appears that the Muisca people use gold for spiritual purposes, as evidenced by how they are found in lakes and caves. Today, the art style is not as alive and popular as, say, Aztec and Maya, but it is still recreated and still alive in some parts of Colombia to this day.
We are Group 2. Thank you for watching.